Hi everyone, and welcome to ACECRT's May webinar, where we will be discussing retirement income planning. We appreciate all of you taking the time to join us here today. Just a few items to go over before we get started. First, in order to ensure everyone has the ability to hear the information presented by our speaker, everyone will be on mute during the webinar. Second, please feel free to write in any questions you may have using the Q&A box on your webinar console. At the end of the webinar, we'll take the time to go through these together. Third, there are several widgets at the bottom of your screen. A Contact Us link for any plan or retirement-related questions, a Refer a Friend link, and resource list, which contains helpful documents and links for your reference. There, you will also find the slide deck for the presentation that we're going over today. Additionally, there will be polling questions throughout today's webinar, and all results are anonymous, and we appreciate your participation. Now, I'd like to introduce our educator, Courtney Shipley-Gardosic of Lovejoy Associates. Courtney has a diverse background in the retirement plan industry, providing a unique education foundation in the areas of fiduciary responsibility, investment analysis, and investment education. During her career, she has provided institutional investment consulting to qualified retirement plans, developed a business strategy for a boutique third-party administrator and record keeper, conducted over 9,000 401k and 403b education meetings to groups and individual employees, and served the corporate, nonprofit, and government markets. A graduate of Vanderbilt University, Courtney is licensed as an investment advisor representative with the Series 66. She holds the Accredited Investment Fiduciary and the Chartered Retirement Plan Specialist designations. Thanks so much for presenting today, Courtney. Now I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thanks a bunch. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. So if you're going to start out driving across the country, you wouldn't just hop in your car and start driving now, would you? You'd probably have a map, right? You'd map out your trip. You'd spend some time packing and preparing. And nevertheless, a remarkable number of people don't take the time to map out the 30 or so years or more that it can realistically take to achieve their retirement goals. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, defining your roadmap for income planning. So first up here, this is our agenda. We're going to spend some time talking about how you go about establishing a plan for retirement. And it'll help if you think of retirement as a destination and your plan as that roadmap that'll help you get there. So in constructing the roadmap, we're going to talk about why it's so important that you start planning now. And we'll help you think through answers to some basic questions like, what kind of retirement lifestyle do you want? When do you want to retire? How long do you expect to retire? We'll also talk about how to come up with an investment plan. We'll crunch some numbers, talk a little bit about the role of tax-advantaged retirement vehicles, and some general investment considerations, and especially relates to risk. And at the end, if you connect all the dots, you're going to have your basic draft of your roadmap here. Starting now on this is really important. Many people assume that they can hold off saving for retirement and just make up the difference later. But this can actually be a costly mistake. The further off retirement is, the more time your investments have the potential to grow. And waiting too long can make it very difficult to catch up, when only a few years can make a big difference in how much you'll accumulate. You can look at the chart here and see we've got age 20 through age 65 there at the bottom. So that's the time frame you have. You have from age 20 to 65 in order to accumulate this money that you're going to turn into a paycheck for yourself in retirement. So if you start right away at age 20 and you save $3,000 a year and you get a 6% annual growth, then you're looking at somewhere around a balance of $680,000 in retirement. That's pretty great. But if you wait until age 35, same thing, start saving $3,000, 6% rate of return, then you're looking at only about $254,000. And if you wait until age 45 to start saving, then you'll accumulate only about $120,000 by the time you retire. So this doesn't mean that there's no hope if you haven't started saving for retirement yet. It just means that it makes all the more important that you implement a plan today, that you get started with saving for retirement, because this is a large sum of money that we're trying to save to accumulate for retirement. Before you can start planning for your retirement, there are 3 basic questions you need to ask. What kind of retirement do you want to plan for? When do you want to retire? And then how long will your retirement last? So let's look at each of these questions individually. If you close your eyes and think about what you want to do in retirement, it might have this picture of the beach scene there. It seems like you can't talk about retirement these days without having a picture of the beach, but you might actually not picture yourself on a beach. You might be on a golf course or a yacht or a hammock or just hanging out in your living room playing with your grandkids or traveling. So there's lots of different things that retirement means to people, but one of the main things is that you probably imagine it as a degree of financial independence. In other words, you're not depending on an employer or anybody else for taking care of yourself in retirement, not a financial burden to those that we love. So to a large extent, maintaining that financial independence in retirement depends on the lifestyle that you want. So describing the retirement lifestyle that you'd like to have is valuable here. So think about it. Does it include extensive travel? Do you imagine yourself living in your current home, downsizing, moving to another location, another state perhaps, or purchasing a vacation home, anything along those lines? The more specific you can be here, the better. Would you like the opportunity to provide financially for children or grandchildren or even your own parents during your retirement years? In a moment, we're going to look at how you might go about determining the cost of retirement. But you've got to get some stuff down on paper first along these basic factors because they're going to impact your calculations. Next is, when do you want to retire? Have you thought about when you'd actually like to stop working and generate your own paycheck from your savings? It's important because the earlier you retire, the shorter the period of time you have to accumulate the funds, and the longer the period of time those dollars need to stretch. And although you can retire any time, most people choose somewhere around age 62 because that's when they're first eligible for Social Security benefits. So that's the earliest you can take them at 62, and then you can receive full Social Security benefits somewhere around the age 66 to 67, depending on when you were born. And also, you're not eligible for Medicare health insurance until age 65. So if you want to retire before then, you'll want to plan for private health insurance. So again, let's pick an age here. When do you want to retire? Next is, how long will your retirement last? We're definitely living longer these days. And as we just discussed, the earlier that you retire, the longer period of time your funds will need to last. But how long should you plan on your retirement lasting? Well, according to the National Center for Health Statistics, the average 65-year-old American can expect to live for another 19.3 years. Keep in mind that life expectancy has increased at a steady pace over the years, and it's expected to continue increasing. So longevity, definitely probably in the future for us. In fact, in the year 2013, there were over 67,000 Americans age 100 or older. So the point that I want to make here is that for most of us, it's not unreasonable to plan for a retirement period that lasts 25 years or more. Now that we've talked about the type of retirement lifestyle we want, hopefully you've jotted down some ideas about what you want that retirement to look like. It's now time to put some numbers in place here. So to make an estimate of the amount of money that you'll need to make all of this happen. So first we'll discuss how to estimate your future retirement expenses, and then we'll talk about projecting your retirement income and identifying your shortfall, if there is one, or a gap. Accumulating enough funds to close this gap is your ultimate investment goal. And we'll talk about how, by making some assumptions, you can calculate what you'll need to accumulate. And then finally, we'll talk briefly about the impact that inflation will have on your calculations, as well as taxes on your plan too. So let's start first with estimating expenses. You've probably heard some general rules of thumb, like you're not going to need your entire paycheck that you were making while you were working in retirement. So why could you live on less money in retirement? In fact, many rules of thumb will say somewhere between 60 to 90% of your pre-retirement income is all you'll need when you retire. This isn't always helpful. We wanted to look a little closer at this, right? That's why we asked you to make some notes about what you want your retirement to look like. But some reasons that you might not need as much as what you are currently making include the following. Your housing costs might decrease if you've paid off your mortgage by that time. You'll probably pay less in overall taxes, and that's specifically income taxes and Social Security once you stop receiving a paycheck. And you'll probably eliminate some costs associated with your current job, like commuting or clothing or dry cleaning expenses, things like that. Now, here's why you're likely to need a little bit more or as much as what you're making in retirement. And that is, you're likely to pay more in healthcare costs, particularly if you retire before you qualify for Medicare. You're likely to pay more in general for entertainment expenses like dining out as well. And depending on the age of your children and or your parents, you might want to estimate and include projected costs for their support, education, healthcare, housing, that sort of thing. So it's important to get that list in estimating your retirement expenses and not necessarily just go by a rule of thumb. In retirement, there are typically three main retirement income sources: your employer-sponsored retirement plan, your individual savings and investments that you have on your own, and then Social Security. So we're going to talk about these a little bit more. First, we're going to identify the gap. So what we need in retirement versus what we're on track to save for and have in retirement. Before we get there, has anyone calculated their retirement gap? There's a poll up. It says, I've calculated my retirement gap and already started making a plan to fill it. True or false? I'll give you a couple seconds to fill that out. All right, survey says, about 60% of you have calculated your retirement gap. That's great. 40%, you'll probably do it after our meeting today. Very good. So identifying that gap. Basically, what we're looking here at is your estimated annual expenses in retirement, what you think you'll need, and then we're going to look at what you have coming in from the sources that you've got saved for retirement and seeing if there's a gap between the two, right, of what you need versus what you have. So this gap represents the amount of additional income that you'll need to make up through savings and investments. So if we estimate that we're going to need $50,000 each year to have the retirement lifestyle we want, but Social Security is only going to provide $20,000 a year, well, we've got $30,000 shortfall there, or gap. So if we're planning on retirement that lasts 25 years, then we'll need that $30,000 each year for 25 years. So that's a total of $750,000. So don't be skewed by the numbers. We're just looking right now at the gap. Your retirement investment plan should have one primary goal, and that is to accumulate enough assets by the time you retire so that you satisfy your projected income shortfall for all those years of retirement. So how you accumulate, or how you estimate that amount that you need to accumulate. So first you have to quantify that income shortfall for each year of retirement, and you know how long a retirement plan you want the period for. And once you know those two things, it's actually a pretty straightforward calculation. Now keep in mind, even though you'll be drawing from your investments each year of retirement, the remaining amount that's in your account will still be working for you and hopefully growing. So the other factor here in this equation is that you need to assume a reasonable rate of return. So the rate at which you believe your untapped account balance will continue to grow. So remember, this is only an estimate. There are no guarantees, and your investments could actually lose money. Let's say, for example, that I determined I'm going to need an additional $30,000 for each year of my retirement. I want to plan for a 25-year retirement period. If I assume that my unused retirement funds will grow at 6% each year, instead of that $750,000 I mentioned a second ago, I'll actually only need approximately $384,000 at the time I retire. So it does make a big difference. How you go about building that lump sum is the subject of the remainder of our discussion coming soon. But we have one more topic to discuss when it comes to crunching those numbers, and that is the challenges of retirement income planning. There's three factors that make retirement income planning a little bit more challenging. So we talked already, you're estimating how much you'll need in retirement, what you want to do in retirement, and then how long your retirement will last, and then you're building in the rate of return that you think you'll expect in retirement from your investments. But then we've got these to account for as well. The first one is inflation. So even if you can accurately predict your retirement expenses, and you can calculate the exact amount of retirement income that you'll need, you'll have to adjust your calculations to account for inflation. You'll also have to keep in mind and account for the effect that taxes will have, and then you'll also need to plan on understanding the potential risk of your account balance, that is, that you need for an ongoing income with the level of risk that you're willing or even able to accept. The first step is talking about accounting for inflation here. Inflation has the effect of reducing the purchasing powers of your dollars over time. We want our dollars that we save now to be worth the same amount in the future as far as going and spending it, right? We want to have the same spending power in the future. And according to the US DOL, the average annual rate of inflation over the past 20 years has been approximately 2.3%. So looking at it a different way, that means that your spending power is being eroded by approximately 2.3% annually. So something that costs $100 today would cost $158 in 20 years because of inflation. So in all the calculations we've discussed so far, we've ignored inflation. But when we're talking about our retirement lifestyles, what we're really concerned with is the purchasing power of our retirement account. And that means adjusting our calculations to reflect the impact of inflation. That can be pretty significant. So let's say in our example here, you've got $5,000 that you've invested each year for 30 years. If your investments grow at 6% annually, then you'll end up with about $395,000. Now, assume that 2.3% annual inflation factored in, and this means that your annual contribution of $5,000 is actually worth less in terms of today's dollars versus the future. It also means that your investment growth is only outpacing inflation by 3.7%. So in our example, after 30 years, your $395,000 has the purchasing power of only $200,000 in today's dollars. So that's why it's very important to account for inflation. The other thing to think about is the impact of taxes. Taxes don't go away. Oh, wait, sorry, before we get there, we have a quick poll question. That is, I understand the way taxes work in regards to my retirement accounts. True or false? Okay, go ahead and answer there. And the survey says true. We've got a lot of people who have thought this through. Spend a little bit more time talking about these. Taxes don't go away in retirement, so there's a few things you need to think about there. The first is ordinary income tax. The second is a special tax rate for long-term capital gains. So when you pull out investment accounts, so income from those investment types of accounts, currently they benefit from special, and in this case generally lower, maximum tax rates. But specific investments like certain municipal bonds, they generate income that can be altogether exempt from federal income tax and sometimes state tax as well. And then last is there's special rules for certain tax advantage accounts, which we're going to talk about a little bit more here in a minute, like a 401k, an IRA, or Roth. So those types of accounts here have a little bit different tax treatment. So it's important to work with a tax professional in retirement to understand how your accounts will be impacted by taxes. Then there's just generally understanding the potential risks that go along with investing. The first is market risk, and this is the risk that there'll be fluctuations in the securities market and that may result in the reduction or depletion of the value of your retirement savings. So in other words, your account will go up and down in value if it's invested according to how the markets perform. The second is reinvestment risk, or the potential that you may have to reinvest at a lower rate of return than the prior investment or take on additional risk in order to achieve the same level of return. And last is interest rate risk. Interest rates change, and those changes in interest rates may change the market value of the bonds that you hold. Now we'll talk about those tax advantage savings accounts I mentioned a moment ago. So probably the best way to accumulate funds for retirement is to take advantage of special tax-deferred retirement savings vehicles. The 401k plan and other employer-sponsored retirement plans can be a really powerful savings tool because your contributions come out of your salary pre-tax, and that reduces your current taxable income, and the money grows tax-deferred until it's withdrawn. And you may also be able to make Roth 401k contributions. Now, unlike pre-tax contributions, Roth 401k contributions don't provide you with an immediate tax savings because it's after-tax dollars that are going into your account. But they allow you to make withdrawals completely tax-free, so completely free from federal income tax under certain circumstances. And finally, 401k plans often include employer matching contributions, which should make them your first choice in saving for retirement. There's also traditional IRAs, which are like 401ks. They feature that same tax-deferred earnings growth, and they can lower your current taxable income if you qualify to make tax-deductible contributions. And like a 401k, those funds aren't taxed until they're withdrawn. All of this sounds a little bit nitty-gritty here. We're going to have some charts here in a couple slides that will show you the comparison in detail between these types of accounts. But first, let's talk about the value of tax deferral in general. So the basic concept is money grows on money. So the faster you can get money in your account and the more money that you can get in your account, the better off you are as far as having the potential for it to grow. So that's what this is built on. That's the premise this is built on. So let's assume you have $20,000 to invest. Let's say you put $10,000 into a taxable account that earns 6% per year, and then you use a portion of these assets to pay taxes attributable to the account's earnings. And then you put the other $10,000 into a tax-deferred savings account, like a 401k, that also earns 6% a year. So assuming you're in the 28% tax bracket, in 30 years, your taxable account will be worth about $35,500, while your tax-deferred account will be worth over $57,000. So that's a big difference. That's over $21,000. And the only difference in the scenario here is whether you put it in pre-tax or post-tax. So even if the funds invested in the tax-deferred account are subject to federal income tax when you withdraw them, as they would be if you made the pre-tax contributions to a 401k, you would come out ahead in this case. So this is true even if you took the entire amount in the tax-deferred account as a lump sum distribution after 30 years, paid the tax in full. And of course, most individuals draw their retirement savings gradually during their retirement years. So let's look more closely now at IRAs and 401ks. The 401k plan, it's become a really popular type of employer-sponsored retirement plans. It's the #1 way that America saves for retirement now. If you participate in a 401k, you take full advantage of it. There's a pretty high maximum contribution that's allowed, and that's up to $18,000 of your compensation. If you're age 50 or older, so you turn age 50 or older this year, you can make an additional catch-up contribution of $6,000, which makes your total $24,000. Your pre-tax contributions are not included in your taxable income for the current year. So to the IRS, you didn't even make that money. It provides you an immediate tax benefit. So if you earn $100,000, defer $18,000 in the 401k plan, you'll only pay income tax on $82,000. Both contributions and earnings in your 401k plan grow tax deferred until you withdraw them. So you're not paying taxes now, you're paying them when you take the money out, which, as we saw in the slide before, can make a real difference in the amount you can accumulate for retirement. And additionally, many employers match a portion of contributions. So if your employer offers that match, this is effectively free money. It's not really free because you show up to work, but it's a good thing to have. There are a few disadvantages to contributing to a 401k plan. Like generally, you're limited to the investment options that are offered by the plan, and that's it. The distributions made from a 401k plan prior to age 59 and a half are subject to an additional 10% premature distribution tax. There are some exceptions to that. In addition, access to your funds in your 401k plan is generally limited while you're still employed. So basically, this is a retirement account. It's going to be locked up for retirement. The IRS gets upset if you try to take money out for any other reason. Here's a nice way to compare. You can also have, besides the pre-tax 401k, you might also be offered a Roth 401k. So what that means is that the Roth 401k contributions are made with after-tax dollars. You don't get an immediate tax savings this year like you do with pre-tax contributions, but once you get to retirement, the earnings and your contributions in the Roth 401k account come back to you entirely free from federal income tax, provided that you followed the general rules there. The limits for the 401k contributions are the same as your limits for the pre-tax 401k contributions, so $18,000, $24,000 if you're age 50 or older. But the limit applies to your total amount that you put in your 401k. So you could put some in the traditional and some in the Roth. As long as it doesn't surpass that limit, you're all set. In order for a distribution from your Roth 401k account to be tax-free in retirement, you have to satisfy a 5-year holding requirement. So you have to have the account open for 5 years and be either age 59 and a half or disabled when you receive the payment. If you receive a non-qualified distribution, your payment will generally include your own contributions, which are non-taxable, and your pro rata portion of the earnings. So you can see the comparison there back and forth, pre-tax, tax-deferred versus tax-free, whether or not you get the matching contributions. The answer is yes in both sides. The one thing I do want to point out here is that the minimum required distribution is age 70 and a half in a 401k plan, and that this money is portable. You can roll it to another 401k or an IRA, either the Roth or traditional kind. Now for the IRA by itself here. The traditional IRA and the Roth IRA both exist. It's a personal savings vehicle that offers special tax benefits. And if you're contributing to a 401k or other type of employer-sponsored retirement plan, you can consider an IRA as well. So this is something that you do on your own outside of your employer. We're going to discuss two different types here, traditional IRAs, Roth IRAs. Both allow you to contribute up to $5,500. Individuals who are age 50 or older can make an additional catch-up contribution of another $1,000 on top of that. And you can contribute to both a traditional IRA and a Roth IRA, but your total annual contribution can't exceed these limits. Contribution limits are tied to the cost of living. Each October, the IRS will announce what the new limit is, or if it did not change. So both of these have tax advantages, similar to what I described with the pre-tax versus the Roth in our prior scenario in the 401k. And the thing to remember here is that you get a wide range of investment options because you're not limited to just what your employer offers in the plan. You can actually invest in whatever you want here. There's a couple of important differences between these two types of IRAs. So let's talk a little bit more about those. Here's our comparison chart. So where you see traditional IRA, that's pre-tax contributions going in, which means that at retirement, when you pull that money out, it is taxed at that point in time, whereas the Roth IRA is after tax, which means that everything comes back to you tax-free, provided that you've had the account open for 5 years and so on. The limits are the same. There's no matching contribution here because your employer's not matching you. But the next item there, the income restrictions, this is probably the most important thing. For a traditional IRA, there's no income restriction. So you can have a traditional IRA no matter how much money you make. But if you can see in the Roth IRA side, there are income restrictions based on if you're married or single. So you cannot have a Roth IRA if you make above that threshold. Taxes are paid when money is withdrawn in the traditional. You pay it up front before you put the contributions in the Roth IRA. You can access the money at similar times. And there is a minimum required distribution here of age 70 and a half for traditional IRAs. If you have the money in a Roth IRA, there's actually no minimum required distribution. It's after the IRA owner's death, so it gets passed on to the heirs. And the other thing to remember is this is also a portable type of plan, so you can roll this over to another IRA, a Roth IRA, employer-sponsored plan, whatever you want to do there. Okay, how are we feeling? I feel optimistic about my personal retirement. True or false? I'll give you a moment to answer the poll. Survey says, ooh, wow, 50-50. Half of you are glass half full and half of you are glass half empty. So let's keep talking and we'll get you some more information here to help you make good decisions. So talking about Social Security, we've mentioned this a little bit earlier in the presentation, but let's drill down a little bit more here. So today, 94% of U.S. workers are covered by the Social Security Administration. So the amount of Social Security retirement benefit that you're entitled to is based on the number of years you've been working and the amount you've earned. Your benefit is calculated using a formula that takes into account your last 35 highest earning years. And the best way to know how much you can expect in benefits is by signing up for a My Social Security account on the Social Security website, which is ssa.gov. to view your Social Security statement online. Now, your statement contains a detailed record of your earnings, so you'll want to look that over at some point, make sure there's no mistakes, as well as estimates of retirement, survivors, and disability benefits, and just other general good information about Social Security to know. And if you don't sign up for an account online, you will receive a statement in the mail every 5 years from age 20 to age 60 and then annually thereafter. The earliest you can begin to receive Social Security retirement benefits is age 62. I mentioned that before. It's even before you qualify for Medicare. If you decide to begin receiving benefits before your normal retirement age, which ranges somewhere between age 66 to 67, depending on the year that you were born, there's one big drawback, and that is your monthly benefit will be permanently reduced. If you take it before your normal retirement age, you're locking in possibly a 25 to 30% less in your monthly benefit check than it would have been if you'd waited until the full retirement age. So conversely, you get a higher monthly payout by delaying benefits past your normal retirement age up to age 70. So even though by taking retirement benefits at age 62, you're getting a smaller monthly benefit, you will end up receiving more benefit checks. But the bottom line is that for most people, Social Security alone isn't going to provide enough income in retirement. So the quick calculator on the Social Security's website allows you to calculate the benefits depending on your work history, earnings, and retirement age, give you a good idea about what you could expect. But I can tell you right now, it will not be enough to live on by itself. Remember, we talked about calculating that gap earlier. Now for some investment considerations. So as we talked about before, I'm not going to talk specific investment options, but it's worth taking a few minutes to discuss some general investment considerations related to planning for retirement here. And for most of us, retirement is actually a long-term goal. That means that generally you should be evaluating investments and your investment strategy based on their long-term potential. So try not to overreact to short-term market fluctuations. We all know that there's a relationship between risk and reward. So investment risk, the more risk you're willing to take, the higher the potential investment return could be. Investing primarily in conservative fixed income investments may be appealing because there's relatively little risk that you'll lose your money, but in doing so, it does have an opportunity cost. You might miss out on possible higher long-term growth. And there's a danger that your investments may not sufficiently outpace inflation. Investments like stocks and mutual funds offer higher growth potential, but with a corresponding increase in risk. So what to do, right? Well, you'll want to choose an investment mix that will provide you with the rate of return that you need in order to get to your accumulation goal in the time that you have until retirement, while at the same time minimizing your overall risk. So it's a bit of a balancing act. And that means you should generally opt for a lower risk investment portfolio with potential to generate the growth you need over a portfolio that offers the high potential return but significantly increased risk. So like I said, it's a balancing act, and working with a financial professional in this situation is probably going to be invaluable for you. So the investments in the investment mix that you have, they need to fit your own level of risk tolerance. You have to be able to sleep at night knowing that there could be some fluctuation there and that you can live with it. And you should also try to further reduce your level of risk by diversifying your investments. So remember, there's stocks, bonds, and cash. You'll need to decide how much goes to which one of those categories based on how much risk you're willing to accept. And keep in mind that diversification can't guarantee better investment performance or eliminate the risk of investment losses, but it can definitely help you sleep at night. Finally, reevaluate on a regular basis, make adjustments as necessary to keep your retirement plan on track. And like I said, you may find a financial professional invaluable in working through these issues and giving you guidance. One other thing about risk is protecting against it, and that's where the role of insurance comes in. The most valuable thing that you have, the most valuable asset in your possession right now is your ability to work and generate a paycheck, hands down, because that's what allows you to live and also to accumulate money for retirement. So planning around the unexpected is very important. And for most of us, the success or failure of our plan will depend on our ability to continue to earn a living. So thinking through this, if you're unable to work due to illness, and you still want to have a retirement, you still want to have a paycheck coming in the door. So that's where disability income insurance can protect financially against the possibility that you'll be unable to work for an extended period of time because of illness or injury. So it'll replace a portion of your lost income. Similarly, if we take you out of the picture altogether, you probably have some folks who depend on your paycheck in order to continue to live. And the most important thing there is that we have your paycheck replaced so that those folks can continue to live at the same standard of living if something were to happen to you, you were to die prematurely. So what would the financial impact be on your family or on you or your spouse if you were to permanently die prematurely? And that's where life insurance can ensure that you and your spouse's plan for retirement will survive the death of one of you. And in addition, just keeping in mind, permanent life insurance does have cash value that can be withdrawn during retirement as a source of funds. As you approach retirement, your need for insurance will change. You'll have different insurance concerns. In general, you'll want to do everything possible to make sure you've got adequate health insurance coverage, and this will be even more critical if you plan on retiring before age 65 when you qualify for Medicare coverage. In addition, there's something called long-term care insurance that can help you maintain financial independence by protecting you against the high cost of care if you need to stay in a nursing home for an extended period of time or you need in-home care. So those are other things to think about. One more thing on the importance of diversification, as we talked about before, this can help you control the amount of risk that you're comfortable and willing to take. And here we have a chart that shows the winners all the way down to the losers ranked in order every year of different types of investments, from large company stock, small company stock, bonds, et cetera, real estate. And the first thing to notice from this chart is that there really is no pattern. This year's winner could be next year's loser or somewhere in between. So it's important to have all of those pieces of the puzzle in your pie, in your asset allocation, your portfolio for investing in order to take advantage of everything the market has to offer. The second thing is that you see the dark blue. That's an asset allocation portfolio. It's got a little star in the upper right-hand corner. And you'll see that it's never at the top as the thing that outperformed everybody. It's also never at the bottom. So asset allocation helps you to squeeze out those highs and lows, keeps you around the middle, earning something that's within reason in order to get you to your retirement goal, and also minimizing the ups and downs. Next, we have implementing your plan. So we've thrown a lot of information at you today, and I want you to remember that you've got to develop your own roadmap. But the thing to keep in mind is that this is going to be a draft. You'll probably change this a million times before you get to retirement, but if you don't get something down on paper now, you're not going to be anywhere. Any road will do, right? If you don't know where you're going, that's what the Cheshire Cat said in Alice in Wonderland. So it's important to get on the road here, and you can change it and detour as you see necessary as time goes on. So carve out some time, work through your specific situation, come up with that roadmap, and start now. We've seen that waiting just makes it more difficult to succeed in the end. So get invested, get involved in your 401k if you haven't already, get enrolled, invest regularly. We've talked a lot about the use of tax-deferred retirement vehicles like a 401k and an IRA. Choose investments that have the potential to meet your accumulation goal with a minimum overall risk to you. Make sure you've got adequate insurance coverage, protect both your health and your assets, and then finally review your plan on a regular basis. So remember, your retirement destination should determine your roadmap, not the other way around. And with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. Thank you so much for joining us. And we've got our 800 number there, as well as email address where you can reach us for further help.
Thank you so much, Courtney. We really appreciate you sharing your time and knowledge here with all of us today. As you mentioned, we'll start addressing some of the questions that have filtered in. Feel free to continue filtering those in through the Q&A tool, or I saw some people putting in the chat. That's fine as well. So let's see here. Our first question is, if I have additional discretionary income, is it best for me to pay down debt or increase my contributions to my retirement plan?
Oh, this is a good question. So here's the thing. Retirement is ever approaching. Your debt will find a way to be paid off at some point in time. So you've got to serve two masters in this scenario. The first thing to consider is, like, do you get a match at work through your 401k plan? And if you do, I would consider at least contributing enough to get the maximum matching contribution and put the rest towards your debt. But I think you've got to do both.
Great, thank you. And another one that always comes in when we discuss Roth is, how do we make a decision what's best for us, traditional or Roth in our certain situation?
Okay, so there's lots of factors to think about here. The first is, where are you in your earning potential? So what I mean by that is, are you in the early part of your career and you expect to be making more by the end of your career? And if so, that means you're at a lower tax bracket now than you will be in the future, just based on your income. So from that standpoint, using the Roth side may be more advantageous because you're not paying a lot in taxes now anyway. On the flip side of that is, if you are somebody who continually owes the IRS money, can't quite get the tax withholding rate, you don't have any write-offs like a house and mortgage interest or dependent children, things like that, then using the pre-tax side can help you lower what you end up owing at the end of the year. Also, if you are a very good saver, you have accumulated a lot in your pre-tax savings, like in your 401k or IRAs, traditional IRAs, and you don't have anything else in like a Roth type of account, then I would consider doing the Roth. And that just gives you more diversity about where you can pull money from in retirement. So the example I like to use is, you get to retirement, you start drawing money out, and you realize a few years down the road, oh, it's time to buy a new car. So the question is, do you go to your pre-tax 401k and pull out the money to buy the new car with, which affects your overall taxable income for the year, or would you rather go to a Roth account, pull out the money after it's tax-free at that point, and not affect your overall income for the year? So if you've been a good saver and you've accumulated a lot in the pre-tax side, consider using the Roth just to diversify how you can take money out in retirement. And then another factor to think about is if you are behind on saving. So remember, money grows on money. That's the whole idea behind this. The more money you can get into your account, the faster, the better off you'll be in the long run. So if you haven't saved very much for retirement, go ahead and use the pre-tax side, because that gets more money in your account faster and growing for you. The other thing to think about there is that it doesn't take quite as big a bite out of your paycheck because it's pre-tax, coming out before taxes, so you do get that advantage where it's not as much missing from your take-home pay. So those are some things to be thinking about there.
Great, thank you. And kind of as far as comparing a 401k with an IRA, when should we make IRA contributions?
Well, that kind of depends. So the advantage of the IRA is that you can invest the money any way you want to, whereas inside a 401k plan, it's whatever the company has selected as your investment options available. So if you wanted to invest differently than in what's available in your 401k, then that's a good time to invest in an IRA. Otherwise, comes down to when you can max out your accounts. So if you've already maxed out as much as you can put into your 401k plan, then certainly consider an IRA at that point as well. Do keep in mind that with IRAs, there are some income limits that are tied in there that apply to how deductible the traditional IRA is, and then whether or not you're allowed to have the Roth IRA. So if you are approaching one of those and it seems to make more sense to go ahead and take advantage of setting that up now, you could do that. The resources list there has a couple of links to the IRS website that talk a little bit more about that, so you can check into that there.
Yes, thank you. And then we got a question here regarding what to do after retirement. So is there an advantage to rolling a 401k into an IRA after retirement?
So if you have separated from service, you've officially quit your job, in other words, both a 401k and an IRA are subject to taking the required minimum distribution by age 70 and a half. So the IRS makes you take money out if you haven't, unless it's in the Roth side. That's one thing to consider. The other is, if you do roll it out, you can really dial things in to you specifically. That means that you have more choices about where you can invest the money besides what's offered in the plan. That means that you could work with a financial professional to develop a plan that is customized to you versus in the 401k plan, it's available for everybody, right? The other thing to think about there is the costs involved. A lot of times the employer-sponsored plan, believe it or not, is less expensive because of the group purchasing power. This isn't always the case, but sometimes it's the case. So you'll want to weigh that with the things you get if you do roll it somewhere else. If you do roll it out of the 401k, you may have more flexibility in how you can take the money out. Some 401k plans don't allow you to take, like they tell you to take the whole balance or a partial distribution, but if you want like recurring checks to come out of it, they may ding you with a fee every time you want to do that. So it may be better to roll it out of the employer plan. In other retirement plans that are sponsored by the employer, they give you the option to set up those monthly distribution checks. So it's important to take a look at that and see what options you have available. Hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Courtney. Those are all the questions I've seen roll in today. Please remember that if you do have any plan-specific questions, that you direct those over to the financial wellness email at acecrt.com or call that number on the screen. A representative would be happy to assist you with any plan-related questions. I did want to mention that since retirement and planning is a very difficult task without seeking out tools and resources, as an ACEC-RT participant and included in the ACEC-RT service, we offer the Personal Financial Portal. It's an online tool that aggregates your financials into one place, allows you to see your full financial picture. It's kind of like mint.com, but very geared towards retirement, so you can run gap needs analysis, anything like that. You are able to sign up on the ACEC-RT participant website, and there is a link for you on that resource menu there. So please feel free to do that, as well as if you need to sign up for any newsletters or future webinars, you may do that as well. But thank you again, Courtney, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. We look forward to our next webinar series with you all. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.